Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open one of history's most debated and, let's be honest, most intimidating texts, the Book of Revelation. But what if I told you that its wild, fiery prophecies about the future are actually a coded message about a bitter conflict from the past? We're going to explore how this apocalyptic vision is actually rooted in a fierce, first-century battle of ideas.
Yeah, the Book of Revelation does not pull its punches. It paints this incredibly vivid, almost terrifyingly clear picture of a world split right down the middle. On one side, you get absolute, eternal salvation, but only for a select few. And on the other side, you get this, fiery, unending damnation for literally everyone else. There is no middle ground, no gray area, it is all or nothing.
So that begs a really big question, right? Where does this stark, all-or-nothing worldview even come from? Is it some totally unique, out-of-the-blue prophecy? Or is it echoing a much older and more widespread conversation? To even begin to find the answer, we have to look beyond the pages of Revelation itself and dive headfirst into the turbulent world of first-century Judaism, a world that was just buzzing with competing sects and super intense theological debates.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start by locking down the worldview that Revelation 14 is laying out. Then, get this, we're going to unearth an ancient text that offers a shocking parallel. We'll break down their shared ideas about conflict and justice, and then we'll connect these ancient dynamics right back to our world today.
First things first, let's get a really firm grip on the cosmic battlefield that's laid out in Revelation chapter 14. Because this isn't just a story, it's a declaration of allegiance.
So, Revelation presents this world of just absolute division. You are either marked with the seal of God, one of the 144,000 who follow the Lamb, or you bear the mark of the beast. That's it. It's a cosmic struggle with the highest stakes imaginable, and there is absolutely no room for neutrality. You are on one side or you're on the other, period.
And look, this isn't just some abstract spiritual warfare. The text is totally grounded in real-world history. The number of the beast, 666? Well, historians are pretty confident this is a coded reference using something called gematria. It's an ancient practice where you assign numerical values to letters. And in this case, the math points directly to Emperor Nero, who is infamous for his brutal persecution of Christians. This little detail is a huge clue. It tells us we should be reading Revelation not just as a prophecy, but as a direct, passionate response to the very real political violence of its time.
All right, now to really get the world that shaped this kind of thinking, we have to turn to one of the most incredible archaeological discoveries of all time, the Dead Sea Scrolls. And hidden within them is one particular document that gives us an unbelievable window into the mindset of this era. This is it, the Damascus Document, found tucked away in clay jars in the caves of Qumran. This text is essentially a rulebook for a Jewish sect known as the Essenes. Now, these guys weren't Christians, but they were their contemporaries. They were living and writing in the exact same turbulent period, and they were wrestling with many of the same questions about purity, community, and, how to survive in a pretty hostile world. Okay, what's so critical to see on this timeline is the overlap. The ideas buzzing around in the Dead Sea Scrolls were being developed and debated right as the very first Christian communities were taking shape. So by the time Revelation was written, this way of thinking, this sectarian, us versus them way of seeing the world, had been around for generations. It suggests that Revelation and these scrolls aren't necessarily copying each other, but that they're both swimming in the same cultural and theological water.
Now, scholars have a name for things like the Damascus Document. They call it a sectarian document. And this is a really crucial concept. It's not scripture like the Torah is scripture. Think of it more like an internal manual, a book of discipline, a club's constitution. Its number one job is to draw a line in the sand, to define who is in the community and who is out, and to spell out the rules that keep those two groups separate.
So what's actually inside this ancient rulebook? Well, as we're about to see, its worldview is strikingly, almost shockingly similar to what we just saw in Revelation.
And here it is, the core conflict, laid out perfectly. Just like Revelation's Lamb versus the Beast, the Damascus Document lays out a struggle between two, and only two camps. On one side, you have the followers of the Teacher of Righteousness, who are all about strict adherence to the covenant. And on the other side are those who get this amazing nickname, the Seekers of Smooth Things. These are the people who, according to the text, were always looking for the easy way out, choosing illusions and loopholes, basically compromising their faith to get along in the wider world. Sound familiar?
But the parallels don't stop with just a shared us versus them mentality.
It gets even more specific. Both Revelation and the Damascus Document also describe remarkably similar frameworks for how divine justice is actually supposed to be delivered.
The Damascus Document outlines what scholars call overlapping agencies of punishment. What this means is that God's judgment isn't a one-trick pony. It can come directly from the divine, straight from the source. It can be carried out by angels of destruction, or it can happen through human actions like a war or a conquering army, which the community would then interpret as God working through history.
So let's bring this right back to Revelation 14. Remember those angels with the sickles, reaping the earth and tossing the wicked into the winepress of God's wrath? Well, that is a perfect textbook example of angelic agency carrying out divine judgment. It shows that both of these texts, one Jewish and one early Christian, are drawing from the same theological playbook for how the universe works.
Okay, I know, the idea of a sectarian document from 2,000 years ago can feel pretty abstract, pretty distant. But this fundamental human impulse to define your community with a shared rulebook, it's not just some ancient thing. To see how it's still alive and well, let's check out a modern example.
Meet the Book of Discipline of the United Methodist Church. Now, this isn't ancient scripture, but it works in a remarkably similar way to the Damascus Document. It's a manual. It's a collection of laws and resolutions that governs the community, defines what proper conduct is for its members, and lays out exactly what happens when those rules are broken.
So what's the real parallel here? It's how these documents are actually used. Both of them depend on human agency for enforcement. Sure, the Essenes believed in ultimate divine and angelic judgment, but their day-to-day community standards? Those were upheld by people. It's the same thing with the Methodist Book of Discipline. It creates procedures for church committees to make decisions about who's in, who's out, and who's in charge. So both texts, ancient and modern, are really practical tools. They are social technologies designed for community cohesion, spelling out the precise cost of not fitting in.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's that the intense black and white worldview of Revelation wasn't created in a vacuum. It is a powerful reflection of a much broader sectarian mindset that was common in first-century Judaism. The Damascus Document gives us this incredible parallel from outside of Christianity that shows the same pattern: two ways, two groups, and a clear system of divine punishment. This historical context helps us see Revelation not just as a mysterious prophecy, but as a document that's deeply plugged into the real-world struggles of its time, which makes its fiery language and its urgency make a whole lot more sense.
And that leaves us with one last thought. This ancient pattern of creating a rulebook to define the in-group against an out-group is a powerful and frankly persistent part of human behavior. It really makes you wonder, what are the books of discipline in our world today, and where are they drawing the lines that define us?